Hey everyone! Are you looking to bring your RV down to Baja?
Well, here's everything you need to know on how to bring your rig down to this beautiful Mexican peninsula. Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. If you're new here, my name is Mike.
I'm Dana.
We are called Let's Just Go Travel. We live and travel around in our RV, and for the last couple of months, we've taken this thing all the way to the bottom of the Baja Peninsula and back. We're gonna give you all the tips that you need in order to bring your rig down there safely and have a great time.
Okay everyone, just some basics if you've never heard of the Baja Peninsula before. It is a Mexican state consisting of two parts, Baja California Norte and Baja California Sur.
Widely regarded as an amazing beach destination with a bunch of really cool villages and towns to explore as you head your way south. Incredibly popular with RVers, van lifers of all kinds. People go there every single year, especially during the winter to escape the cold up north. It is an amazing place to visit. It's got a ton of amazing food and things to do, awesome people. It's just generally an awesome place to hang out. But hopefully by the end of this video, you're gonna have all the information that you need and you're gonna feel super comfortable on going down there.
So as an RVer, when you come down to Baja, you may have to adjust some of your expectations just depending on where you're coming from.
What you're used to back at home in terms of having access to things like water and dump sites and services for your RV in case you break down, things like that. These sort of things may be a lot harder to come by in Mexico, so you're gonna have to do some pre-planning and know what you're getting into before you go. So peak season for most RVers in Baja is around December to April. In general, that's gonna be the time that most other rigs are down there. A lot of people are coming down to escape the cold, escape the winter. So you're definitely gonna be seeing a lot of rigs during winter time. But it's always possible to still find seclusion if that's what you're after.
In terms of how long to stay, this can range depending on what you want to see, where you want to go. In general, 1 month is probably going to be the very minimum if you want to see like most of the peninsula. We took about 2 months and we felt that that was a really good amount of time. We didn't get to see everything, that's okay, but 2 months felt like a really good amount of time. But again, if you only have 1 month, you're probably gonna be okay. Yeah, you kind of want to just enjoy it, not rush through. So that's why we recommend 1 month to 2 months and longer if you want. Because again, most people will stay there the whole winter.
Yeah, like, it's definitely not something that you can do in like a week or 2 weeks.
That's like, okay, so if you're gonna do that, that's you flying in to one destination and you're just gonna stay in like Cabo. You're not gonna be going up and down the peninsula in like a week or two. So keep that in mind.
Before you go ahead and roll your rig into Mexico, there's going to be a few things you're going to need to take care of before you go. So one of the most important things you're going to need to take care of is insurance for your rig while in Mexico. Whether you have a truck and trailer or motorhome or van or whatever, you're going to need to get insurance for it because it's very likely that the insurance that you have back at home won't work out here. There's a lot of different choices of insurance online. We went with a company called mexadventure.com. The whole process was online. You just enter in your vehicle details and trailer details in our case. For our truck and trailer, it was about like $700-ish. It ranges a lot depending on what type of rig you have. Another good option for insurance is Baja Bound. That's a very popular one that a lot of people use. We just found MexAdventure was slightly cheaper, so we went with that one. Another thing that you may or may not need to take care of is called a TIP. It's called a Temporary Import Permit. This will only apply for you if you're planning on taking your rig to mainland Mexico, so anywhere outside of Baja. Since this video is just on Baja itself, we're not going to need to worry about it. And lastly, one of the most important documents that you're going to need to deal with when you cross over to Mexico for your road trip is called the FMM. So the FMM is sort of like a tourist card, tourist visa. This is a tourist card that you need to purchase and get stamped at the border when you're crossing over. You can buy it online, but you still have to bring it in person to get it stamped. And by buying it online beforehand, you can risk them kind of rejecting it on the spot. We heard a lot of stories about people who get their FMM online and then they show up and they won't stamp it because they don't have the receipt or the proper receipt or whatever. In general, we just recommend get your FMM while you're at the border. Since you have to go in anyway to get a stamp, just buy it right there on the same spot and you don't have to worry about any of that.
So if you are considering bringing pets down to Baja, you do need to have all their vaccinations up to date, have them printed out. This is going to be super important if the border crossing agent asks for them. Now nobody asked for them when we went down, so
but you should have them
anyway. You should definitely have them anyway. The other thing we highly recommend you do is photocopy all of your credit cards, your IDs, your passport, any super important documents that you need in case they get stolen or lost somewhere down the Baja Peninsula. Okay, which border crossing should you take? There are border crossings in Tijuana, Tecate, and Mexicali. We chose Mexicali, and in Mexicali there are two different options, Mexicali East and Mexicali West.
So we chose to cross at Mexicali East just because it's a lot less busy than West, and it was great. The day that we went, there was barely anybody there. I think we waited maybe 10 minutes to get across.
We went really early.
Yeah. So the border crossing process. So when you're crossing the border at Mexicali East, you're going to want to stay in the very rightmost lane, and that'll be the easiest way for you to get into the inspection area where they're going to look through your rig. They're going to take you off to this sort of side parking lot area, and they're going to inspect your rig. How thorough they inspect it is going to be dependent on the person. Yeah. So there's really no way to know if they're going to be thorough or not. For us, they were not very thorough. They maybe opened up a couple of drawers and a cabinet, and that was about it. And what we did right after our inspection is we left our rig there in the inspection parking lot. We got out and we went to get our FMM, which I just talked about. So it's this office that you walked into. There's a guy at a counter, and you basically tell him you're there for your FMM. He fills out all the forms with you, and you pay for it right then and there. I believe it was 600 something pesos, so I'll put the actual price down here. And in general, you're gonna want to bring cash for this. You don't want to rely on having a credit card. Like, we've heard mixed reports. Some people can pay with a credit card and some people weren't able to, so just have cash. Definitely a good idea to get some pesos before you cross over. There's a handful of currency exchange places near the border on the California side, so you can just go to any one of those and grab some pesos before you go.
So, like normal at any border crossing, you are not able to bring any meat, dairy, or vegetables. So make sure you don't have any of those on board with you.
So another thing that I thought would be good to touch on since we're talking about border crossings is all the military checkpoints that you're going to encounter in Baja. So throughout all the major highways in Baja, there's going to be military checkpoints set up at select areas, usually, close to entrances of towns and things like that. And it's going to be a very similar process to what you did at the border. You're going to pull up to this gate. A military guy is going to come up to your window and ask you to open up your rig or your truck or whatever. Like the border crossing, it can be a thorough inspection. It can be a very fast one. We had mixes of both while we were there for sure, but we never felt unsafe or that there would be any problems. They were always very nice and professional.
Alright, so once you cross the border, you are going to want to stock up on those meats, veggies, and fruits. Anything that you weren't allowed to bring over across the border. Luckily, all the major cities here in Baja do have Walmarts, they have Calimaxes, major grocery stores, so you will not have a problem stocking up on all those groceries.
While going to a Walmart isn't exactly the most, culturally best place to go in terms of your first experience in Mexico, but it is very convenient. As we all know, Walmart has everything, and it's just easy to start your trip off, have everything that you need right off the bat. Of course, yes, go to the local farm markets and fruit stands and things like that once you're in Baja, but when you first go in, Walmart's okay that one time just because you need all this stuff.
Alright, East Coast versus the West Coast. Obviously, go to both. They're both stunning. However, the West Coast is going to be a lot more geared towards your surfers, anybody who wants to go on a whale tour, and anybody that wants to just be around those giant waves crashing on the ocean. So definitely go see that side. It is stunning. The east side is definitely very different. You are going to get the more calm waters, turquoise colors, and just a lot more chill vibes. East Coast is definitely what you picture when you think of Mexico and all its beautiful beaches. So yeah, again, definitely go see both, but they each have their own special characteristics.
So ideally, before you came into Baja, depending on what kind of rig you have, you filled up all your fresh water inside of your RV. But in case you didn't, here's how...
Puppy break.
Calvin, high five.
Oh, good boy.
Here's how fresh water and things like that work in Baja. So in general, you're never going to want to drink any tap water that you find anywhere. This includes campgrounds that have full hookups and things like that. You can't drink any of the tap water, I guess, unless you had one of those super sophisticated filtration systems inside of your rig. So what you're going to want to do in terms of getting fresh water in Mexico is going to places called agua purificada. So these are little shops that are set up in all towns, big or small. You'll be able to Google them everywhere you go. You can also find them on apps like iOverlander. You can go and get fresh filtered drinking water. A lot of people bring 5-gallon jugs there to get them filled. In terms of bringing your rigs there, it is really a toss-up. It depends on how big of a rig you have. Things like truck campers or vans, they're gonna have a lot better time of it than someone like us with a truck and a trailer. And we have a small trailer as it is, so I couldn't really imagine doing it in like a 30 or 40 foot, fifth wheel. Like, that's probably not gonna happen. So the very first time we did roll our rig up to a place and have it filled with a hose, it was just a lot of trouble. So what we did for literally the rest of the trip is just we got our 5-gallon jugs and we refilled them everywhere we went and just dumped it into our trailer. So in terms of sewer dump sites for your RV, most hookup campgrounds will have them, so you can either stay at them and use them, or a lot of places will just let you use them if you pay a small fee, just like back at home. Either use the iOverlander app to look it up, or just Google RV parks, RV campgrounds in your general area.
Alright, next, finding your camp spot. So this is probably one of my favorite parts to planning our trip to Baja, and best app to use is iOverlander. This app came in handy for absolutely everything. So when you use this app, there are tons and tons of different campsites all along the Baja Peninsula, and you have options of either free, paid, or just like parking lots and stuff, so those are still free. During our stay, we tried to kind of do as many free camp spots as we could, but there were some sections of our trip where we did have to do a few paid sites, mainly just due to our comfort levels with this being our first time here in Baja, and the other times, we just want to get out into nature and see how adventurous we could get and get into those crazy beach spots. So definitely, if you can, try to do as much unpaid as you can. The campgrounds are amazing, but they're not the true Baja experience that a true overlander camper would really want.
Also on iOverlander, there's great resources such as where to get water and propane and laundry, and usually there's good restaurant recommendations.
It's absolutely free, so there's no reason why you shouldn't have this app.
Aside from that, yes, of course, you can Google RV campgrounds, like I said before, with finding dump sites. And while we did stay at a few campgrounds that were like full hookups, our best experiences by far were the free ones, the free beaches, where you're there by yourself, where it took a little bit of effort to get to. But ultimately, they're the best sites, and it's the best experience that you can have camping here in Baja.
If you are a bigger rig, though, you definitely do want to do a bit more research. A lot of the free camping that we did find, most of it could accommodate a larger rig. We saw lots of big buses here on the beach. So yeah, just definitely do a bit of research, check out pictures that other people have posted. You can fit on the big beaches, but the more secluded ones, you may have a bit more trouble.
Another really amazing app that helped us during our entire time in Baja was Google Translate.
We know zero Spanish.
Yeah, we don't know any Spanish, but having Google Translate with us pretty much at all times, it made the language barrier pretty much non-existent. You could type out what you need, show it to the person. They can usually either type it back to you or they'll just kind of, through body language and things like that. We always got our point across, and yeah, it was fun interacting with locals in this way.
So obviously, you guys know what kind of rig we have. We're not huge, we're not tiny, we're kind of in the middle. We're able to get to some pretty amazing beaches. However, if you are in a van or a truck camper, you're probably gonna have a little bit more areas that you can adventure to.
Yeah, in terms of what is the most ideal rig to bring down to Baja, there's a lot of debate on this. And of course, it really comes down to personal taste and things like that.
What type of trip you want to do.
But yeah, in general, like Dana said, if you got a truck camper, if you got a 4x4 all-wheel drive van, you're gonna be able to get to places that we weren't able to get to. Not that we weren't able to get to some really cool secluded places but there were some moments too where we got stuck or we went down a road that we really shouldn't have, but because we had a smaller trailer and a truck that has 4x4, we were still able to go to plenty of secluded beaches that are boondocking, that are free, and yeah, we just had a really great time in this rig down there. In terms of driving down here in Baja and things like towing down here in Baja, so you don't have to worry about anything like having to drive on the other side of the road or anything like that. It's going to be the same as what you're used to if you're already from North America. If you're from Canada and the US, it'll be fine for you. If you're coming from Europe or places like that, it will be opposite for you. So yeah, you drive on the right side of the road here. Everything is in kilometers per hour, which for us Canadians, that's great.
However, the major thing that you do need to consider here in Baja is the size of the roads.
So when you're in the big major cities and the big highways and stuff like that, you'll be fine for the most part. But There are several small towns and there are several stretches of highway that are in between towns, especially near the middle of Baja, from San Felipe all the way down to Guerrero Negro. There's an entire section where, yes, it's a highway, but there is no shoulder. The road is quite narrow. And when you're driving down the road and a semi-trailer passes you going the other direction, it can get scary, especially if you got a rig that's a little bit wider like us.
Like, I can't imagine, if you have a large rig, be careful, because we were scared in our rig and there were way bigger travel trailers than ours. So definitely be careful.
Yeah, so you're passing each other with like inches of clearance on both sides, and you can't veer off onto the shoulder because guess what? There is no shoulder. You'd just be going into a ditch and you'd probably flip over or something. So definitely be careful, especially during that stretch. But like I said, in general, if you're near like a big city, a big town, you're probably gonna be okay for the most part.
One thing that we were definitely recommended a lot when doing research about Baja was do not drive at night. Now, I believe that this is super, super important, but I also think that it is also kind of maybe taken to the extreme in some situations. So for us, we were like, let's not drive at night, like literally at all. And I think that was maybe taking it a little bit too far. I think don't drive at night when you are like, when you're traveling like to your next destination. Like, don't do towing at nighttime. Like, that is just a big no-no. There's a lot of donkeys, cows, they kind of roam around wherever, and they can sometimes be on the highways. But I think what we took it as a little bit too far was we just didn't drive at night even while we were like in the towns, and I feel like we almost maybe missed out a little bit on the nightlife of, you know, every little city that we went to. So definitely keep that in mind. But also, I have heard at nighttime, if you are driving across the highways, you can potentially come across some shady cops, which is another reason why people do not recommend you drive at night. And this will lead into our next section, safety and security here in Baja.
So I feel like this topic has a lot of controversy because a lot of people out there that buy into a lot of the rumors that, oh, you're going to Mexico, oh, it's so unsafe, oh, you're going to be kidnapped by the cartel, or you're gonna get scammed at every corner, or someone's gonna mug you.
Yeah, these people are missing out. They're missing out.
Our opinion on all that is that all those rumors are way overblown.
Yeah.
We had an amazing time, and except for one tiny incident.
But it's tiny, so it's really not a big deal.
Except for one tiny incident, we had absolutely no problems with our safety and security. I'll just go over with you some of the things that people tell you in general to watch out for safety and security. So one of them is of cops that will try to extort you for money because, you know, they'll tag you for rolling through a stop sign or going 5 miles over the speed limit, things like that. They'll pull you over. They say they're going to give you a ticket, but if you pay them X amount right now, just drive away, right? Nothing like that ever happened to us while we were out here at all. We never got stopped once by any policeman, but that's not to say that we didn't hear about it happening to other people, because we definitely did. If you do get stopped by a cop, if they are targeting you for the purposes of extortion and they're not actually pulling you over for something legitimate that you did wrong, you're going to want to, one, film the entire interaction if you can, whether with your phone or if you have a dash cam, that's even better. And two, always insist that you'll go to the station to pay. A lot of the times, right at that moment, the cops will just drop it because they don't want to waste their time either. So the one bad thing that did happen to us during our entire time down there is we got our truck's hitch shank and trailer ball stolen. One day when we were in Cabo, I think it happened at like a mall parking lot or something like that, someone just took it off of our truck. So that was the one incident that we went through down there, but in all honesty, it was kind of our own fault. We don't have a lock for the hitch. Lesson learned for us. Other than that, we never felt unsafe, even when we were camping at the most remote beach campsites by ourselves with nobody else around. Any local that we would ever run into during those times, but it was always super friendly and super helpful. Yeah, those sort of rumors, just they get blown out of proportion, which is not to say that crime doesn't exist down here, but it exists in the same capacity that exists everywhere else, right? So there's going to be crime in all countries, in all corners of the globe. Mexico's no different, and don't let that be the thing that deters you from coming down here, because I guarantee you most of the people telling you these things have never actually been there themselves. So bringing your rig down to Mexico, it comes with some risks for sure. When you get down here, you're not going to be near a lot of the same sort of services that you're used to back at home. There's not an abundance of RV repair shops or RV dealers that have service centers and things like that. That's just not really a thing out here. There's mechanic shops for sure, and I think there are RV repair places way down at the bottom at Cabo. But if you're driving all the way down there, and if you have some problems, you're going to encounter them way before you get to the bottom. So the name of the game is being self-sufficient and knowing how to kind of fix stuff on the fly yourself. Yeah, in general, have a toolkit for yourself, understand basic RV repair. So just kind of looking over our entire trip here in Baja, we definitely had a lot of things go wrong in our trailer. We had our freshwater tank supports give out. We had an issue with our wheel bearings. We had to take that apart, and our fridge door fell off while we were here, and we had to DIY something on the fly. And, you know, just in general, we had screws rattle loose all over the trailer, and you just got to be prepared. Definitely tools that I would recommend are must-haves are things like an air compressor, a tire repair kit, have things like recovery boards to get yourself out of situations like if you're stuck in the sand. You could have a tow strap if you are in a situation where either you can help someone get unstuck or they can help you get unstuck and pull you out. Basic tools like a drill, like a screwdriver, an assortment of screws, nuts and bolts, Gorilla Glue and Gorilla Tape. Yeah, just kind of be prepared for anything that may come, because a lot of the roads that you're going down, especially if you're wanting to get off the beaten path, you know, they're going to be gravel roads, dirt roads, sandy roads, a lot of ruts, a lot of washboard sections. Just be ready.
Alright, in terms of cell signal, we pretty much had good cell service every time we were in a town. However, whenever you're driving in between towns, there's definitely going to be long stretches where there's going to be absolutely nothing.
So the main cell provider in Baja is Telcel, and you can go to any of their stores and buy a SIM card and they'll get you all set up so you can have data while you're out there.
So another way to stay connected is having a Starlink. Now this is extremely popular, and we saw a ton of people with the awesome Starlink system, and this thing kept us connected literally everywhere, and it worked perfectly at every single spot that we went to.
Alright, so touching back on grocery stores again, so like we said, when we first got into Baja, we went to a Walmart to supply everything up, and after that we basically relied on local grocery stores in towns, big or small. Eating out was very
really
cheap.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, depending on where you go.
Avoid the tourist section.
You avoid the touristy towns and touristy sections of towns. You can find some really amazingly cheap food. Do your research, look on iOverlander. Alright, so getting gas here in Baja, it's very easy. Every single gas station is full serve, so you don't even ever get out of your vehicle. Just roll to a gas station and someone will always come by, they'll pump you up. We were able to pay with credit card at pretty much every single gas station except for one in between San Felipe and Guerrero Negro. That one was cash only, just because there was that big long stretch of freeway with no towns in between. And yeah, like we heard about scams that some gas stations pull where they will not reset the meter before they start filling up your tank, overcharging your credit card, things like that.
That never happened.
Literally never happened to us.
So in general, you can pretty much use your credit card at a lot of places here in Baja, but we do recommend always stocking up on a bit of cash. We used our credit card for grocery stores and gas. However, when it came to paying for campsites and eating out, we like to use cash for this. It was just a lot easier, and the less touristy food spots definitely do not take credit cards, so make sure you have enough cash for that.
And yeah, in most towns and cities you'll go to have lots of ATMs scattered throughout. You can find ATMs inside of grocery stores and banks. Use the iOverlander app or use Google. You can usually find an ATM where you are. One thing to note, during the time that we went, there was a section in the middle near Mulahay. This town has absolutely no ATMs at all. And all the campsites that were surrounding it where we were staying, all of them were cash only as well. So to get to an ATM at that point would have been
an hour and a half drive.
Yeah. So before you get to Mulahay, definitely stock up on enough pesos to get you through your entire time there. So while we're on the topic of gas, if your rig requires propane, it is also very easy to get here in Baja. Again, look on the iOverlander app. Every major city or town will have a place that fills that up, and you can just roll up there, pay in cash, get your tanks filled. Is usually pretty cheap also.
The other thing that you're probably going to have to do while you're on the road is get your laundry done. Yeah, there's pretty much just going to be one option here in Baja for laundry, and that is going to be just dropping your laundry off, letting them do it all, and then picking it up later. This actually comes at a little bit of a luxury for us Because most of the time, we're doing our laundry ourselves. We're going into that laundromat, sitting there for like an hour or 2 hours, just waiting for your laundry to get done. However, getting your laundry done by somebody else was super, super convenient. We could go out into town, explore, and then later in the day, go pick your laundry up.
In terms of the price, it's pretty much the same price that we would pay in Canada or the US doing our laundry ourselves at any laundromat. Okay, so now that we've gone through all the tips of bringing your rig down to Baja, we're gonna now go over our 2 months down there, all the places that we went to, and all the things that we did.
So because we crossed the border at Mexicali, it made the most sense for us to drive down the east coast of Baja all the way to San Felipe. Found a beautiful camp spot here. We spent about 2 weeks at this location exploring San Felipe. A couple things that we did here were hike a super crazy mountain called Cerro El Marcharo. I could be butchering that, I'm so sorry. But this hike was super stunning once you got to the top. Definitely difficult, so keep that in mind.
We also went to an area called the Valley of the Giants, which reportedly has the world's largest cactus. And other than that, we spent a lot of time hanging out in San Felipe, enjoying some delicious food, and just kind of taking in our first couple weeks in Mexico and getting used to everything. We also spent a lot of time at our beautiful beachfront campsite, meeting a whole bunch of other travelers, other van lifers, other RVers that were coming down into Baja. A lot of it was their first time also, so it was just really nice to connect with all these different new people and hearing everyone's stories of where they're going. Well, after San Felipe, we crossed over to the west side of Baja to an area called Ensenada. Getting to see the Pacific side versus the Sea of Cortez side was definitely different for sure. We went to campsites that had a lot bigger waves crashing on the cliffs.
We spent most of our time in an area called La Bufadora, just outside of the main town of Ensenada. This area was super stunning, lots of beautiful landscapes. The main thing that you do here in La Bufadora is go see the blowhole. This is technically the second largest blowhole in all of North America, so definitely go check that place out.
We also did a hike in La Bufadora that took us to an amazing viewpoint of the ocean with mountains and cliffs. Really unexpected because a lot of the times when people think of Baja, they think of amazing beaches and clear turquoise waters, and while it has a lot of that, you don't always think of amazing hikes, but they have some really, really cool hikes, and definitely check them out.
After, we moved to another campground near Ensenada.
So we were beachfront again at this awesome site. We had an amazing time. There were dolphins in the water here jumping.
So while we were hanging out here at this wonderful campsite, we went on a really cool hike called Cerro El Coronel. This was a stunning hike, and we highly recommend doing this one because the views from the top were panoramic.
So after we had finished up in this area of Ensenada, we headed up north to pick up our friend Marissa, who was joining us for the Christmas holidays. So we picked her up in Tijuana before getting off the rig and started driving south as fast as we possibly could. We basically drove for 3 days straight. Day one was from Ensenada to Punta Bufeo. Second day was from Punta Bufeo to San Ignacio. And the third day was from San Ignacio to Bahia Concepcion.
One thing to note here, we were moving very fast because our friend Marissa only had 2 weeks to travel with us, so you do not have to drive this fast. We would recommend spending a bit more time in that Punta Bufeo area as well as the San Ignacio area.
A couple places we missed out on because we had to get down south were Bahia de Los Angeles and Gonzaga Bay. These are both very popular places to visit while you're in Baja, but unfortunately we weren't able to see them this time around just because of our schedule, so that'll have to be for a later trip. But yeah, on day 3 we finally made it down to Bahia Concepcion, which is really one of the most popular parts of Baja for RVers, period.
People stay here for months.
Yes. So Bahia Concepcion is this big giant bay located near the outside of a town called Mulegé. You remember what we said about Mulegé earlier in this guide is there's no ATMs here, so make sure you bring plenty of pesos with you before you get to this area. Lots of campsites to choose from all around this section.
Most, if not all of them, are paid.
Yeah, it's usually not very expensive. It's usually something like 200 pesos a night, which is $10 US a night, so that's amazing. But they're all going to be dry camping. There's very few full hookup sites around this area. You're gonna see the most amazing beaches, crystal clear waters, go snorkeling, go paddle boarding, all the water activities you can think of in the hot sun. This is where you do it. We stayed at a couple different beaches here while we were in Bahia Concepcion. The first one was Playa Santispac.
It's the largest, I think, beach, and it's also the very first one that you drive past.
Another beach that we also went to, it's called Playa El Requesón, I think that's the name of it. I don't know, I'm probably not saying it correctly. But it's another very beautiful beach. It's got this really, really cool like triangle shape to the beach itself. And it's also got the sandbar that leads out to this island that you can walk to. Mulahay is the closest town to this area, and Mulahay is a very, very small town. We highly recommend being completely stocked before you go out there. They have some small grocery stores, but in general, it's going to be harder to find stuff out here.
So after Bahia Concepcion and Mulahay, we made our way down south and went to a beautiful town called Loreto, and arguably our favorite spot in all of Baja. This place has stunning landscapes you'll see by the beautiful mountains in the background, and we found a really amazing beach, which we almost had to ourselves for most of the time. While we were in Loreto, we got to explore two really cool trails. The first one was called Tabor Canyon, and honestly, if this is the only hike you do in this entire trip, this is one that you should do. This one is stunning.
And the other hike that we did in the area was called Mesquite Canyon. It's another canyon similar to Tabor, also very, very beautiful.
And yeah, the landscapes here are just so beautiful.
And just the town of Loreto itself was kind of our favorite place. It was a lot more chill and low-key compared to some of the bigger cities. It sort of had like a small, medium-ish town vibe. You still had all the amenities of a big town, but it didn't feel like a big town, so you still had, you know, big grocery stores, lots of amazing restaurants. Had a great time hanging out here. We went to a bunch of different taco places. Our favorite one was probably Taco's Nanny, where it was run by this lady right out of her house. She had some chairs just set outside of her garage, and she would make you tacos. Yeah, some of the best tacos we ever had for sure.
Alright, so after Loreto, we made our way down to La Paz. While we were in La Paz, we stayed at a beautiful camp spot called Playa Tecolote.
So Playa Tecolote is a free beach located about half an hour outside of La Paz. It is one of the most popular beaches to boondock at, to RV at, to van life at in all of Baja. And it can definitely get really, really packed here. Especially, there's a certain time of year every single year during the winter where this big giant van life gathering, nomadic living gathering happens on this beach. There's gonna be hundreds of rigs.
Yeah, like no joke. The whole beach will be packed.
Yeah. So, but regardless, this is an amazing beach where you can park up your rig and stay there for free. It's beautiful.
Well, one of the things that we did do while we were here at Playa Tecolote was check out Balandra Bay. Balandra Beach is technically considered to be Mexico's top beach. Definitely stands up to it. It is stunning. The water levels here are very, very shallow, so it's extremely family friendly. One of the really cool things that you can do here at Balandra Beach is rent a kayak or paddleboard.
Another thing that we did in this area is we hiked up the mountainside to see Balandra Bay from an aerial view. You get this incredible view of the entire bay, and you can see this texture in the sand. It's sort of like this waviness that goes over the entire beach, and seeing it from this sort of aerial view lets you really appreciate the beauty of this beach. While we were in La Paz, we also did one of the top activities to do in all of Baja, and that is to go swimming with whale sharks. So this was a very, very fun excursion. We went with a company called Tuna Tours, where they take you out into the ocean. You get in the water, you swim with whale sharks, like right next to them. It's really crazy. And these are real sharks. Like, they're not a species that they call shark because they look like it. No, these are real sharks. Definitely don't miss out on this activity when you're here in Baja. It's one of the main things you can do, and it's really cool. Alright, so after La Paz and Tecolote Beach, we finally made our way to the very bottom of Baja, to Cabo San Lucas. We actually stayed at an RV park about 40 minutes away in an area called El Pescadero. We kind of use this as our base camp for exploring the Cabo area. We dropped off our dogs at a kennel in Cabo just because there was a lot of activities that we wanted to do in this area that we wouldn't be able to bring them on.
So after dropping off the dogs, we were able to explore this beautiful area in a more traditional way. We were able to go to a bunch of restaurants, we were able to go shopping for souvenirs, and we were also able to go on a boat tour to the very, very end of Baja, Land's End, and see the beautiful arch.
We also did this really cool hike in Cabo where we got to climb up a mountain with a whole bunch of dogs at this dog camp, which I know is ironic that we got rid of our dogs in order to do this, but it was really cool. Yeah. Cabo is just, you know, what you'd sort of picture in your mind from like luxury restaurants, luxury hotels,
cruise ships are coming in.
Yeah, you got cruise ships coming in and out. There's just a flurry of activity everywhere you go. Lots of vendors, lots of shops, lots of places to explore. It's really cool, but definitely a change in pace from what all the things that we've been doing up until that point. Walking around the streets and kind of taking it all in from your typical vacation tourist sort of point of view. While we were in the area of our campground near El Pescadero, there was a place called Todos Santos. Got to see this company that had this whole hatchery set up at the beach where they release little baby turtles into the water. So if you don't know, these turtles are an endangered species. Their numbers are getting lower and lower every single year, but companies like this are really dedicated to the conservation and preservation of these baby turtles. So we got to see them release them into the water at sunset, which was probably one of the most magical things that we've ever seen in our whole lives.
It was beautiful.
It was very, very cool.
Alright, you guys, that pretty much wraps up our trip here in Baja. If you would like to see a bit more information about what we did, you can check out our previous vlogs.
So yeah, guys, that kind of concludes our How to RV in Baja video. We hope that this video was helpful for you in terms of planning your trip. Even with just our short 2 months that we were there, we learned so much, and we hope that some of this information will be helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And definitely, like we said, don't be scared of it. Definitely go to Baja with your RV. It is 1000% worth it, and
Yes.
you will have a great time. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. My name is Mike.
I'm Dana.
Or let's just go travel, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Woot woot!